Hi there and welcome back to my channel. Today I'll be showing you how to replace the rear tire and tube on your motorized stand-up scooter. So this is the same scooter that I made some videos in the past, and today I'll be showing how to replace this tire. As you can see, this tire here is pretty well finished. The tube's busted and it's sliding off the rim here. What you're going to need today is a 10mm deep socket, 16mm wrenches, or 5/8 will do. You need 2 wrenches. What you're going to do is loosen the 2 nuts on the axle. You're going to need a wrench on each side because the axle may turn. You may also want to have your scooter jacked up on a block so that it's off the ground. Now once you've got the axle loose, you have to loosen up the nuts on the chain tighteners on each side of the wheel. And you can do this with a 10mm deep socket. We'll loosen it this much for now. And don't forget, you have to do the same thing to the one on this side as well. Now you're going to have to remove this nut completely. So once the nut comes off here, this is going to come off. Now you can pull the axle right off. And you'll notice on the side of the disc brake there's a little spacer there. Make sure you don't lose that. And there's a little spacer on the side of the chain as well. Now what you have to do is remove the chain off the sprocket. Now you're going to have the whole wheel off. Now when you get the wheel off, there's a little bearing that goes inside here. It may come out, so just remember where it went. And this spacer here goes inside here, and then the bearing back on. So just keep track of where all the parts go. So far these are all the parts that I have that came off. The 2 chain adjusters, the axle, 2 spacers, the large spacer, and the bearing that go inside the wheel. Just to make things a bit easier, I'm going to remove the sprocket with an Allen wrench. There's 3 little bolts here that need to come off. These rims actually split in half, so all you have to do is remove the 3 Allen screws here, and then the rim's going to split in 2. Once you've got the 3 bolts, it's just going to split in half. It's going to make the job really easy. Now the tire and the tube are just going to come off like that. Here's a closer look at the tire. It had a rip right here, and then I guess a rock or something punctured the tube, so that's why it went flat like that. So the tire size for this is 9 by 350 by 4, 4 meaning the size in here, 4 inch. And the tire they sent me is 3 by 4, so there's just a bit of difference in the height and the width, but as long as it's 4 inch, it's going to work on the rim. So I got a new tube with it as well, the one with the bent stem. It's metal, which will work better on this scooter. So at this point here, just insert your tube inside the tire. Now the tire doesn't need to go in any specific direction. Make sure that the stem's up like this. And when you insert the tire on the rim, you're going to see a hole here for the stem. So just stick it in like this. So push it in like that. Line up the stem right over here. The other part of the rim will have a hole for the stem here as well, so you want to line that up over there. You want to make sure that the tube is not over the edge of the rim here, because you could puncture it. So now insert the other side of the rim like this. You want the stem to be inside the rim. Now all you need to do is line up these holes with the holes on the other side of the rim and put in the Allen bolts. And tighten them up evenly. So once you've got all this done, you're basically ready to put air in it. And I suggest pumping it up now, because once you put the sprocket back on, it's a bit harder to reach the stem. I also suggest using a hand pump to pump it up, because if you use a compressor and you've got too much pressure, you could blow the tube. Whereas with the hand pump, there's less chance of that happening. I've actually inflated my tire to 50 psi because I don't want it to be hard as a rock. And that's going to be good on the tire. Actually, it says up to 60 psi, so you don't have to go 60 psi for it to be okay. So now at this point, we're ready to put the sprocket back on. So just put it on the hub and line up the little holes here to the ones on the hub. You want to tighten them up evenly. So just snug them for now, then go around after and tighten them up. So now we're ready to put the wheel back on. First, you want to make sure that this insert is in the center of the hub. Remember, you've got the little bearing that goes right in here. Now to stick it back on the bike, grab the chain, wrap it around the sprocket. Next, you want to grab the axle, stick it here, put your other spacer that went there. Now line up the wheel with the axle. Don't forget there's another spacer that goes in between here. So push in the axle, line it up. Then on the left side, you gotta make sure that the axle goes through the hole here. Just like that. Next, put the chain adjuster on. This way here. Then there's two washers that go there. And the nut goes on. At this point here, you want to tighten up both chain adjusters on the left and on the right using your 10mm socket, and tighten them up evenly on each side. So you only want to adjust these until the chain is nice and snug. You don't want the chain too tight and you don't want it too loose either. Also, make sure when you put the wheel back on that the disc brake is in like this. It's imperative that the disc is in the caliper here, or else it's not going to work properly. So at this point here, all that's left to do is to tighten up the nut. Now once you've got the rear axle tightened up, you're all done. You can take your scooter out for a test run now to make sure everything's good.